Professor Barnes here with another sports betting preview for the NFL title games. Let's start off with the AFC Championship, where the Cincinnati Bengals have snuck their way into the AFC title game. And the young phenom, Joe Burrow, who has the highest rating quarterback rating this season, according to Pro Football Focus, travels to Kansas City, a familiar face for the AFC title games, where the Chiefs have played the last 3 AFC title games, winning 2 of the 3 and only losing in overtime in the first one to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. So up in this matchup, Kansas City is favored by about a touchdown or a little more, depending on where you get your picks at the sports books. Currently, the total is around 54.5. The projected score is basically 31-24, though the Kansas City over is currently 31.5 individual team total, and the Bengals are hovering around 23.5 as an individual team total. The matchups, in fact, for the first half, Kansas City is favored, has a team total of 14.5 compared to Cincinnati at 10.5. So, how will the game turn out? Well, you have Joe Burrow's put up some of the best passing yard offense of the second half of the season up against Kansas City, of course, and Patrick Mahomes proved once again last week why he's still the king of the AFC until somebody knocks him off. Andy Reid has a creative coach who proved that in the very first play of the overtime game, whereas Cincinnati's coach is a little less proven, and this will be Burrow's only second ever road playoff game. That's probably why the spread is where the spread is at. However, the Cincinnati Bengals' second half of the season defensively has been much better. Honey Badger is in a concussion protocol, and if he is unable to go, we saw last week what that can look like as little-known wide receivers end up with 200-plus yards receiving, looking like a hybrid of Jerry Rice and Randy Moss due to the lack of a competent pass defense with any depth in Kansas City if their top players cannot go. So it should be an interesting matchup, should be a fun game. I don't know whether it can top last week's. Our own favorite bet on this game at sportspicks.locals.com, where you can get free football picks and predictions the rest of the season, is for the first half under of 27, which may get up to 27.5 by the time of kickoff, given where the total is going. Despite the explosive nature of both of these offenses, typically they don't always get off to hot starts. In fact, Cincinnati had to come back to beat Kansas City earlier in the year, 34-31, where they shut down Kansas City in the second half of that game. So we'll see if that continues over into the first half of this game. Cincinnati's defense may be a little underrated and a little undervalued. And while Kansas City has put up 31 or more in every AFC title game they've played and generally put up 31 or more in most of the playoffs games under the Mahomes-Andy Reid combination, they may not get off to such a hot start right away in this game. Remember, even last week, the game was heading under for the game with just 2 minutes left to play until the wild and wacky finish that we witnessed there in Kansas City. For the rest of the picks that we like for this game, go to sportspicks.locals.com, where you can get those picks for free. We have, in fact, over 25 picks for this weekend's title games on Sunday. Up next, in the NFC title game, the San Francisco 49ers, who have owned the Los Angeles Rams in the last several seasons, will travel to SoFi Stadium, where we'll see if the stadium is more filled with Rams fans than it was at the game finale earlier in the year. That was a lot more red than it was purple and gold. Matt Stafford comes off that extraordinary game against Tampa Bay, who we knocked off the king, the Super Bowl champs, the GOAT of all time, playoff sports and football with Tom Brady. Despite his extraordinary comeback, 27-3, managed to come back, tie it all the way up. Was not able to hold on as they made the mistake of blitzing Matt Stafford, which is something that San Francisco has avoided doing in its dominance of the Rams this season and in the past several seasons. However, this game comes in with the Rams with the number one defender in all of football in Aaron Donald, the number one cornerback in the NFL in Jalen Ramsey, a defensive line that got better with the addition of Von Miller, and a offensive line that played well and held up well last week, and it has been improving and the whole team has been improving as chemistry developed with Stafford in this new offensive system, and the additions of OBJ and the continued development of Higsby and the return of running back Cam Akers, who hopefully holds on to that ball a little bit more for Rams fans than he did in Tampa last weekend. The expected total here is only around 46, as low as 45.5 at some sports books, despite the fact that both of these offenses have net yards per play in a passing game of over 7 on average. Now, of course, since Garoppolo's injury, he has struggled and made some key mistakes that just haven't ultimately cost them victories in the last several weeks. His performance in Green Bay was anything but impressive, and that comes on top of injuries and banged-up players in George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, and some other key personnel on the San Francisco defensive side of the ball as well. So whereas the Rams come in pretty healthy and appear to be on a hot streak and playing some of their best football of the season, particularly Matt Stafford as he has adjusted to this offensive system under Sean McVay. The Rams should have a much more home-friendly crowd, and consequently they're favored by about 3.5 points. Basically a predicted score of something like 25-22 or thereabouts, 24, 21, somewhere in that neighborhood, according to Vegas. The first half points total for San Francisco is as low as 9.5 at many sports betting books, whereas it's about 21.5 for the game. And whereas the Rams are expected around 24.5 team total and around 12.5 first half team total. So there might be some interesting prospects and betting opportunities amongst those, especially with all the individual game props available on these title games. Our favorite bet in this game is the over of 45.5 between the Rams and the 49ers. And even though there is a lot of wise guy money on the under in this game, understandably, because of how San Francisco has played of late and because of how this series has been of late, we think both offenses will show up and play a little bit better than expected currently in Vegas totals. For the rest of our picks and predictions, go to sportspicks.locals.com. It should be a fun and interesting week. If the Rams win at home this week, they get to play the Super Bowl at home in a few weeks after that. And then will Mahomes make it back to the Super Bowl again? Or will the young Joe Burrow prove the number one rating Pro Football Focus gave him for this past season and make a surprise bid for the Super Bowl himself? Will Matt Stafford finally get to the Super Bowl that his strong career richly deserves? Or will Garoppolo get back to the big dance and the big game and perform better than he has so far late in this season by playing money football when it matters, which he has done even down the stretch of the season? We'll find out. Either way, remember, if you like this kind of content, remember to like, share, and subscribe here at Sports Wars. And if you want more free football picks and predictions, go to sportspicks.locals.com. It should be a fun Sunday. Thanks, everybody.